Jack here. In today's video we're going to be replacing the driver's side CV axle. If you remember, that was the one thing that was brought up on my MOT, that the inner boot was split. Now it's just making a load of noise, so I've decided to replace the entire axle. A boot kit was about 20 quid and the entire axle delivered was 45, so I'll just replace the entire thing. So we're gonna do that today. Okay, so first things first, we need to jack up the car and get the wheel off. I'm pretty sure I'll need to jack up both sides, but I'm gonna jack it up, get the wheel off, and I'll be back. So basically these nuts basically get sort of indented, as you can see. It's meant to look like that. So what we need to do is basically try and remove this indent with a hammer and a screwdriver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray some WD-40 in between the axle and the nut, just to try and loosen it up a bit. And I'm going to get a flat blade screwdriver and stick it in there and try and hammer it out. Okay, so what I've done is, as you can see, I've managed to bend it out pretty much all the way. So as you can see here, I used a 32mm socket on an extension bar on my 1/2 inch impact gun, and I basically just whizzed the nut off, and as you'll see, the nut came off nice and easily. And now what we're going to do is we're going to push something onto the axle, just hammer it back. That's coming out nice and easy. Apparently if that's stuck, WD-40 is pretty good. Okay, so next we're going to remove the tie rod end here. And after we've removed the tie rod end, we need to remove the bottom ball joint. So there's a 13mm bolt here, and there's one on the other side. So I'm going to remove the tie rod end and then get this ball joint off. Hopefully it shouldn't fight too hard, but it might do, so you might need to get a hammer out. Let's have a go. Okay, so I've managed to separate the outer tie rod from the hub. Just basically undid the bolt and then just give it a whack with a hammer. So now we're going to take the lower ball joint bolts out, which are under here, 2 13mm I think they are. So yeah, I think they're probably going to be quite stiff, so I'll get the breaker bar out. I would recommend doing this before taking the tie rods off, just make your life a little bit easier. But yeah, it's coming out now. Okay, so we've got these 2 13mm bolts out, so now we just need to separate the ball joint. So best way to do it, I think, is to just sort of tap it. It should come out. If it's not coming out, you need a bigger hammer. Now this looks pretty rusty, so what I'm going to try and do is release the bolt on the bottom of the ball joint. I think it's a 19mm bolt. I'm going to have a look now. It seems to be basically rust welded together. So I'm going to see if I can get that bottom bolt off, which should help us release the control arm, which will allow us to pull the hub and the strut away from the car. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so I cannot for the life of me get this to drop out or this to drop out, so I'm resorting to this is probably like plan C maybe. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the tie rod and I'm going to remove the bottom of the strut from the hub carrier. This is definitely the harder way about it, but I cannot separate this for the life of me, and I've used a hammer and a bigger hammer and I still can't do it. So as I said, I'm going to drop the drop link off, and then I'm going to remove that pinch bolt again. This will be the 3rd time this week now, so I'm going to remove that and get the drive shaft out. Okay, so I managed to loose the strut from the hub, and I've managed to basically push the drive shaft out. So to do that, what I did was sort of support the front of it with my foot like that, and just pushed the drive shaft through here, and it basically just popped out the other side. So I'm going to support the hub, because obviously there's things on it that we don't want to sort of pull, like the brake line and the ABS line. So I'm going to support it and get the drive shaft out over to the side here, and we'll go under there and get it out from the side of the gearbox. So I'm just going to show you exactly how bad this this boot was. So the boot split here, which seems to be really, really common, but I've literally, all I've done is pull this out of the hub, and it was probably a tiny bit further in than that, but that is literally how bad it is, and I can nearly pull that out. There's a cable tie that I've put on there, a couple of weeks ago when I first noticed this, just to sort of help a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty bad. Okay, so basically underneath here there's 3 bolts that need undoing, and this is what they need undoing on. So there's one here, and then there's one here, and then there's one up here as well. And these basically need undoing from, I think it's the bell housing. So yeah, it's a little bit hard to sort of show you what's going on in there. I'll try my best, but yeah, we need to basically get these out. Okay, so I'm under the car from the front now, and what you've got to do is remove the power steering pump fan. So you can see there's 3 nuts there. We're going to remove them, and then that will allow us to get access to it properly. So I'm going to remove them and I'll check back in. Okay, so there's no video for this bit because it's really dark and really hard to show, but as you can see on the screen, this is the sort of bearing that I showed in the previous clip, that's attached to the back of the engine. It's not the bell housing, but there you can see the 2 bolts, and there's one on the top at the other side, to the right. They're 13mm bolts. I would recommend using a ratchet and spanner to make your life a whole lot easier, because these bolts took me quite a while using just a normal spanner, and there is not enough room to get a socket in there, even with a ridiculous amount of extensions. So save yourself a bit of time, buy yourself a 13mm ratchet and spanner, and yeah, get these 3 bolts out nice and quickly. So here I've basically already removed the 3 13mm bolts, and I'm basically just wiggling the drive shaft out of the side of the gearbox. It's pretty easy to do, and it won't take too much force. And just like that, drive shaft's out. Alright, so messiest job ever. It's absolutely, I'm covered in CV grease. I knew it was a messy job, but didn't think it'd be this bad. Anyway, the old drive shaft is out, and it's time to put in the new one. I'll leave a link to this one in the description. It comes with a nut on it, so I did order one, but we don't need it. So I'm going to put it in now, and yeah, hopefully show you that, and get it back into the side of the gearbox. Okay, so obviously the nature of where the drive shaft is, it's quite a dark place underneath the engine, so the camera wasn't the best, but basically you've got to bring the drive shaft up and basically line it up with the hole that's in the side of the gearbox that the old drive shaft came out of. So as you might be able to see, it's starting to rain, which is great. I've managed to get the new drive shaft in. It was a total pain in the ass. You basically have to hold the bracket upright in the right position, and then just kind of like wiggle the drive shaft, but obviously that's easier said than done, and it's relatively heavy when you're lying on your back. But anyway, it's in the gearbox. I'm going to tighten up those 3 13mm bolts now, which if you're doing this you'll know that the top one is an absolute mission to get to, but yeah, I'm going to get those 3 13mm bolts in now and secure, and then we'll get the drive shaft put back into the hub. Okay, so the drive shaft's in the gearbox. I've put those 3 13mm bolts back in. If you are going to attempt this job, please buy yourself a set, or at least a 13mm ratchet and spanner. You'll save yourself so much time. I've literally, by the time I'd done 1 bolt, which was the most awkward one at the top, I'd put the drive shaft in and done up the other 2 bolts. So just get yourself a ratchet and spanner just to save yourself a heap of time. But now we're going to get the drive shaft in the hub, get the hub back onto the shock, get all the bolts back on, and get it all buttoned up. Okay, so we're going to lean the hub forward, and you basically just got to sort of jiggle it around until you can fit the hub in there, or fit the drive shaft in there even, just like so. Then we're going to pull the hub backwards, or push it backwards even. You're basically just going to work it in. Okay, so we're going to put the new nut on the drive shaft. Just going to put it on a couple of threads so it's tight. Now I'm going to get the hub back in place, put the pinch bolt in, put the drop link in, put the tie rod on, and then I'll check back in. Okay, so I've got the driver's side all buttoned up now. Did all the bolts back up obviously, torqued them up to spec, did obviously the drive shaft main bolt back up, and put that dent back in it as well. It's really simple. You literally just get a screwdriver on it and hit it with a hammer, and that's basically it. Got the wheels back on, So yeah, it's all good to go now. The boot that was on the drive shaft on this side was an advisory on the MOT, so that's fixed. So technically, this car now has no MOT advisories, which is great. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it useful. Give it a thumbs up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and yeah, share it with your friends, and let me know if you found the video useful, if you've done this job yourself, and yeah, take care.